The first time I heard it, I thought it was the television. Some soft, muffled sound bleeding through the wall while I binge-watched reruns of a show I didn't care about. I'd seen it all before. I wasn't even paying attention. The rain tapped softly on the living room windows, a white noise rhythm that usually made me feel calm. But tonight, I felt anything but. The TV was playing, the volume low. Tessa was upstairs, supposedly taking a bath. The stepfather, John, was in the guest room with his bad hip, icing it, he said, after walking too long earlier in the day. The sound came again, a soft moan, delicate, feminine. It didn't come from the TV. I muted the sound. There was silence for a moment. Then it returned, clearer now. Another moan, slow, breathy, intimate. The house was too quiet for it to be anything else. At first, I rationalized it. Maybe she was watching something on her phone. Maybe she made a noise while stretching in the tub. Maybe I was overtired. Paranoia is a funny thing. It tiptoes and dress like logic. But the more I listened, the more I felt it. Something wrong. Something unmistakable. I moved to the hallway. The lights were dim. The carpet beneath my bare feet felt damp, though it wasn't. I stood by the staircase, listening. A floorboard creaked above me. She wasn't in the bathroom. The light was off. No water. No candles. Nothing. Then I heard it again. This time was louder. A sharp inhale. A name. John. I stopped breathing. My stepfather. My mother's husband. The man who moved in with us after his surgery because she couldn't care for him. The man I grew up tolerating. Not loving. Not quite hating. He was just there. The gravel-voiced Marine with permanent squint lines and stories about Vietnam he probably made up. She had always been polite to him. Too polite. She laughed at his jokes when no one else did. Touched his arm during stories. Once she said, "He's aged well, hasn't he?" I laughed then, thought nothing of it. Now, standing there in the hallway, I remembered everything I should have paid attention to. Like how she always served him first. How she called him Big J. How she once told me he had a nice voice. I crept toward the guest room. The door was ajar. The light inside was low. I could see shadows moving. Another sound. A giggle. Then her voice again, breathless, playful, and so far removed from the woman who told me 3 nights ago that she was too tired to touch me. I didn't open the door. I couldn't. My hand hovered above the knob like it had forgotten how to function. Instead, I turned and walked away. Back to the couch. Back to the muted TV. I stared at the screen while my heart cracked open like an egg. When she came downstairs later, she acted like nothing had happened. She even asked me if I wanted tea. "Did you finish your show?" she asked. I nodded. She kissed the top of my head and went to bed. I stayed on the couch, listening to the rain, watching the screen that no longer made any sense. Because I had heard something, and I knew exactly what it was. But I needed to know for sure. So I waited. I started listening for more. The next day, she smiled too easily, laughed too fast. Her eyes darted when I spoke. I asked her what she wanted for dinner. She said, "Surprise me." I did. I installed a motion sensor outside the guest room. The following night, I sat on the couch again, pretended to sleep, muted the television. The rain had stopped, but I could still hear the faint ticking of the living room clock. It pulsed like a slow, counting heart. Around 11:34 p.m., the sensor went off. She wasn't in the bedroom. I moved slowly, quietly down the hall, just in time to see the door closing. I stayed there, leaned into the wall, closed my eyes, and listened. The same moan, louder this time, more urgent. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. And I promised myself I would catch them. The next morning I made breakfast. She came downstairs in a robe I hadn't seen before. I asked where she got it. She said she bought it last week. The tag was still on it. John joined us 5 minutes later. He was limping less. His mood was high. He made a joke about my cooking. She laughed too hard. I watched them, eyes darting between expressions, shared glances. The electricity in the air was wrong, like static that never discharged. Later, when she left for a walk, I slipped into the guest room. The sheets were freshly made. Too fresh. Her perfume lingered faintly. The trash can was empty, but I pulled the bag. At the bottom was a crumpled receipt for wine I never saw, and a wrapper for something we hadn't used in months. I felt my pulse rise, my face flush. Rage threatened to crack through my ribs. I put the trash back like nothing happened. I needed more. I bought a second camera that afternoon. Smaller. Hidden. This time I aimed it right at the door from inside the hallway. That night, I went to bed early. She stayed up reading. The next morning, before anyone woke up, I checked the feed, and there it was, 12:09 a.m. The door opened. She stepped out, looked both ways, slipped inside the guest room. 3 minutes later, John followed, and the door closed. This time, I didn't need to hear it. This time I knew. The next day was colder than usual. Gray skies, wind that bit through my jacket like it knew what I was hiding. I didn't talk much. Tessa did. Too much. She filled every room with words, with laughter that sounded like it was copied and pasted from an old memory. I watched her move, how she reached for things she didn't need, how her hands hovered before touching me, like she was deciding whether the contact was worth it. When she kissed me goodbye, I noticed the faintest smear of lipstick on her teeth. She hadn't kissed me in weeks. Not really. But now, suddenly, her lips were glossy, smudged. She said she had errands. I said nothing. I waited 15 minutes, then followed her. She didn't go to the grocery store. She drove in circles for almost an hour, stopping, waiting, looking in her mirror. Then she doubled back and parked at the edge of town, near a walking trail. I watched from across the lot. She sat in the car for several minutes, then reached in her bag and pulled out a burner phone. I felt something inside me snap quietly, like a string pulled too tight, finally giving way. She texted someone, waited, then started walking down the trail. 10 minutes later, John's truck pulled in. He didn't even try to hide, just parked and walked after her. I went home. That night, I cooked dinner. She came home late, claimed traffic. Her hair was damp, like she'd just showered. I asked her if she'd gone for a swim. She laughed, said I was weird. While we ate, she told me a story about a coworker. Her eyes sparkled while she spoke. She was animated, alive. I hadn't seen her like that in months. I excused myself, went to the bathroom, stared at myself in the mirror until my face didn't feel like mine. I checked the guest room camera again. Nothing. No visits. But I knew they were being careful now. She started locking her phone. One night, she left it charging in the kitchen. I woke up at 3 a.m. and checked it. Password protected. I guess on the fourth try. Our anniversary. There were no texts, no calls, just the camera app. I opened it and saw her, lying on the bed in the guest room, in lingerie I didn't recognize, holding the phone, recording herself. "For you," she whispered. Then a pause. Her eyes drifted off screen. "You like that, Big J?" I dropped the phone. The next morning, she acted normal, smiled, kissed my cheek. Her lipstick didn't smear this time. I told her I had to work late. She nodded, didn't ask questions. I parked a few blocks from the house, waited. At 9:42 p.m., John's truck pulled into the driveway. I didn't go inside. Not yet. I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, watching the shadows move behind the curtains. And I imagined them. My wife, my stepfather, my family, in bed together, like animals, like strangers, like it wasn't my life at all. And I knew what I had to do next. But I didn't do it. Not that night. Instead, I went back to the park where she met him. Sat in the car for hours. I imagined how their conversation sounded. The way she might laugh for him. Did she kiss him first? Or did he kiss her? Did they laugh about me afterward? About how blind I was? How soft? I drove home in silence. No music. No voice in my head but hers, replaying the words, the laugh, the breathy moan. The next morning, she brought me coffee in bed. Told me I looked tired. I asked her where she went yesterday. She blinked. Said, "Nowhere special." I didn't respond. Later that day, I went through her closet, her underwear drawer. I found a pair of lacy black panties I hadn't seen before. Too small, too new, not her style. I found a bottle of cologne that wasn't mine in the back of her sock drawer. I sat on the floor for 10 minutes, just holding that bottle. It smelled like him, like aftershave and gasoline. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake, counting the seconds between each breath, each creak in the hallway. I thought about how many times they had been in the same room while I was in the house. Thought about all the times I've been working late while she said she missed me. I checked her phone again. New password. I opened her laptop. She'd logged out of everything. I checked the trash bin. One video. 32 seconds. She was on top, moving, like it was the most natural thing in the world. The camera was shaky, handheld. Her hair was pulled back. She was biting her lip. "You enjoy watching us, don't you?" she said, looking straight into the lens. I slammed the laptop shut. My stomach twisted. I wanted to vomit. I didn't. I sat on the edge of the bed and cried instead. Silent. No shaking. Just wet, bitter, silent crying. Because I didn't know what else to do. And because I still loved her. The next day, I followed her again. She went to a pharmacy on the other side of town, one we never used. I waited across the street. She didn't come out for 15 minutes. When she did, she wasn't carrying a bag. She got into the car, sat there, still, staring at her steering wheel. Then she cried. I saw her shoulders shake, her hands cover her mouth. I should have felt pity, but all I felt was rage. Was she crying because she was ashamed? Or because she got caught? Or maybe, just maybe, she loved him. The thought made my skin crawl, made my throat go dry. I felt like I was being skinned alive from the inside out. When she got home, she didn't speak, just walked upstairs, like a ghost wearing her face. I didn't follow. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the knife block. And I started planning. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room, staring at nothing, hearing every creak in the house, as if the walls were whispering back at me. My hands shook without moving. My mouth was dry. I didn't blink for minutes at a time. At 2:11 a.m., I heard the floorboard above me groan. There's signal. I stood up slowly. My knees cracked. I grabbed my phone, turned the camera on, and tiptoed to the bottom of the stairs. Another creak, then a faint giggle. Hers. The hallway was dimly lit from the glow of the nightlight near the bathroom. I moved up one step at a time, heart thudding, so loud I was sure they'd hear it. As I reached the landing, I heard it, his voice. Low, raspy, intimate. I missed this. Then a moan. And I heard her. Raw, unfiltered, alive. I moved to the guest room door. It was almost closed, just a sliver of warm, sickly light bleeding out from inside. I crouched and pointed my phone toward the gap. There they were, her on top of him, his hands on her, like she was his. Her head thrown back. My wife, my stepfather, my family. She whispered his name, again and again, like she forgot I ever existed. Whispered it, cried it. He said mine once. Laughed. She forgets you. Every time she's with me. She doesn't even think about you when I'm inside. My throat went dry. I stopped recording. I pushed the door open. They didn't notice immediately. She was too focused. He was too smug. Then she turned her head and saw me. She froze. Mid-motion. Eyes locked on mine. Her mouth dropped open. I didn't say a word. I just stood there. Let them sit in it. Baby, she started. I held up my phone. I know, I said. John sat up. Didn't even try to cover himself. Guess it's out, huh? He muttered. Tessa pulled the blanket over her. Her eyes darted around like she was looking for an exit. I can explain, she said. I laughed. It was the first time I had laughed in weeks. And it sounded wrong. Too loud. Too sharp. It bounced off the walls like a scream. There's nothing to explain, I said. You slept with him. In our house. In my life. You moaned his name. You recorded it. Tears started to form. Crocodile once. I didn't mean for it to happen. It was a mistake. Which time? She went quiet. John stood, still naked. You were never enough for her. You knew that. I turned to him slowly. And what are you? My mother's leftovers. His jaw tightened. She chose me. No, I said. She chose to be a liar. I backed out of the room. They didn't follow. I walked to the kitchen, still shaking. I plugged in my phone, uploaded the video to a private drive. Insurance. When I returned upstairs, she was waiting at the top of the steps in a robe. Her eyes red, her mouth trembling. I still love you, she said. No, you don't. She reached for me. I stepped back. You don't get to touch me. Not anymore. She cried. I didn't. I walked past her, went to the bedroom, locked the door, and curled up on the bed. I stared at the ceiling until the sun started bleeding through the blinds. The next morning, she was gone. A note on the counter. I'm sorry. I threw it away. An hour later, my mom called. Where's John? I haven't heard from him in days. I paused, took a breath, asked Tessa. Silence. Then she hung up. By the end of the day, the whole family knew. I didn't have to say a word. The video never left my hard drive. But the truth had a way of spreading on its own. John texted me. Let's talk. I blocked him. That night, I lay in bed alone. The house was silent. No laughter. No footsteps. No moaning. I never felt so hollow. And I still wasn't done. I printed stills from the video. folded them, mailed them anonymously to John's coworkers. I knew where he worked. I knew where his locker was. I'd visited him there once, years ago, back when he was still pretending to be a man of honor. I posted a burner account to a community forum his church used. Just a hint, a suggestion, that the deacon had a secret. The replies poured in like blood and water. Tessa called that night. I let ring. She texted, "I deserve it." I didn't reply. Instead, I stared at the framed photo on the mantle. Our wedding day. Her eyes were wide with joy. Mine were filled with disbelief that I got someone like her. Now I knew why. Because monsters wear makeup, too. I slept on the couch. Again. The next morning, a rock shattered our front window. A note wrapped in it, scribbled in black marker. "This isn't over." I didn't panic. I didn't flinch. I picked up the rock, placed it on the table. Then I called my lawyer. It was time to go nuclear. The lawyer didn't flinch when I told him everything. He'd seen worse. That's what he said, anyway. Maybe he had. Maybe not like this. We filed for divorce the next morning. I attached the evidence. Not all of it. Just enough to make the judge wince. 2 weeks passed. Tessa didn't contest anything. She didn't show up to mediation. Her lawyer called mine once. Asked if we could settle quietly. My lawyer laughed. "Your client didn't cheat quietly." In the meantime, I changed the locks, burned the bed sheets, tossed the mattress. I emptied the guest room. I repainted it white, sanitized it, but it still smelled like them. My mother moved out of state. She didn't want to be around when John's secrets hit the community bulletin. He was asked to step down from the church board. He blamed me. Of course he did. One day, I caught him sitting in his truck across the street, just watching the house. I stared back through the blinds. He didn't move. He wanted me to see him. So I walked outside, straight toward him. He drove away. Coward. Tessa showed up once more. Late at night. She knocked. I didn't answer. She knocked again. I heard her sobbing. Then silence. When I opened the door an hour later, she was gone. She left behind her wedding ring. It sat on the doormat like a dead insect. I kept it, dropped it in the freezer next to a bag of peas. Symbolic. Therapy helped. Sort of. The therapist said I was grieving the idea of her, not the reality. The idea was beautiful. The reality had fangs. One night, I saw Tessa's Instagram. New profile. New name. A photo of her and a man I didn't recognize. Younger. Fit. Tattoos. Caption. Starting over. I didn't feel rage. Just pity. He didn't know what she was. Not yet. But he would. I deleted the app. I found work in another city. Different state. I took only what I needed. The house was too heavy with ghosts. The night before I left, I sat on the porch with a glass of whiskey and the rock he threw through my window. I held it like it meant something. Maybe it did. Maybe this was what closure felt like. Not forgiveness, not healing. Just enough numbness to finally walk away. The next morning, I locked the door for the last time. I didn't look back, and I never said her name again, but I still remembered it. It came in dreams sometimes, in flashes, in nightmares. Sometimes I'd wake up with her voice in my ear, like a ghost pressed to the skin of my memory. Sometimes I swore I saw her reflection in other people's faces, on buses, in waiting rooms, in blurred crowds at gas stations off the interstate. Once, I was sure I saw her getting into someone's car at a rest stop. Blonde hair, the way she turned her head. I followed that car for 20 miles before realizing it wasn't her. The ache in my chest didn't care. I slept with other women. None of them stayed. I never asked them to. One of them found a ring in my freezer and asked what it was. I lied. Said it was a joke. She didn't laugh. She left in the morning without saying goodbye. I kept the ring. Still do. Sometimes, I open the freezer just to look at it. To remind myself how far I sank. How much it cost to crawl out. I got older. My hair started graying. I stopped checking her profile. I stopped saying her name in my head. But it never really let go. Some people survive. Others just adapt to being hollow. I became very good at pretending.